Hi, welcome back. In this segment, we're going to talk about the effects of having multiple linkages. Here we have two examples. Here, the conclusion is that the president is a natural-born U.S. citizen. And it's based on these two premises. Premise one, the president was born in Kapiolani Maternity and Gynecological Hospital. And premise two, anyone who was born in Kapiolani Maternity and Gynecological Hospital is a natural-born U.S. citizen. And therefore our conclusion, the president is a natural-born U.S. citizen. Well, the audience might perceive a gap. For example, right here is premise number two. They don't see the nexus. The premise two appears false. So there's too big an inference gap. One solution is to increase the number of premises across the same span so that it's more likely that the audience might see the connections. So we've got a shorter gap, more linkages. So now we have three premises for the same conclusion. The president was born in Kapiolani Maternity and Gynecological Hospital. Premise two, one who was born in Kapiolani Maternity and Gynecological Hospital was born in Hawaii. And premise three, one who was born in Hawaii is a natural-born U.S. citizen. So our conclusion then is the president is a natural-born U.S. citizen. So in this manner, sometimes increasing the number of linkages can increase the perception of certainty for the audience, for the overall conclusion that you're asserting. But sometimes there can be perceived too many premise linkages, too many inference steps. Inference upon inference upon inference can become perceived as merely speculation. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 premises. Let's look at them. Premise 1, the president's Hawaiian birth certificate was in the official records according to the reporter, as told to her by a witness who heard the director's statement. Then the next premise goes to the predicate was in the official records according to a witness who heard the director's statement. So if the reporter said it was true, then it was true. Here the third premise, the last part, was in the official records according to the director's statement. So if the witness said it was so, then it was so. The next piece was in the official records. So if the director said it was so, then it was so. The next piece is authentic. So any that was in the official records is authentic. And if it's authentic, then it proves the president was born in Hawaii. And lastly, it proves the president is a natural-born U.S. citizen. So you can, sometimes the number of premises, and I'm not saying that exists here, but sometimes because it's an individual determination, sometimes the number of premises can cause the audience to say, that's just speculation when there's so many linkages. I'm going to show you one here that's actually from a Supreme Court case, Lopez versus Gonzalez. And this is one of the lines of reasoning by one of the justices. And the conclusion of that justice was, the Gun-Free School Zone Act falls within the scope of the Commerce Clause. So this is the line of argument. The first premise was the Gun-Free School Zone Act forbids knowingly possessing a firearm knowingly in a school zone. The next premise, any such that forbids knowingly possessing a firearm knowingly in a school zone, will reduce the number of firearms carried to school by students. The next premise in the Justice's reasoning was any such that will reduce the number of firearms carried to school by students will reduce the amount of gun-related violence in schools. The fourth premise was any such, and here of course remember, any such is like the subject of the first premise, any such that will reduce the amount of gun-related violence in schools will reduce the number of dropouts and victims of gun-related violence who typically have suffered academically. The fifth premise, any such that will reduce the number of dropouts and victims of gun-related violence who typically have suffered academically, will improve the quality of education in schools. Premise number 6, any such that will improve the quality of education in schools will improve the functional and technological literacy of students. Premise 7, any such that will improve the functional and technological literacy of students will improve the functional and technological literacy of workers. Any such that will improve the functional and technological literacy of workers will improve the business competitiveness of employers in interstate and foreign commerce. Number 9, any such that will improve the business competitiveness of employers in interstate and foreign commerce falls within the scope of the Commerce Clause. So you've got a lot of linkages in this line of reasoning. The majority opinion, when it looked at this line of reasoning, said there was too much speculation, too many inferences, and because of that, they said the strength of their argument was very weak. So sometimes the number of premises can increase clarity and increase the level of uncertainty that an audience perceives in an argument. But sometimes increasing the number or having a larger number of linkages can raise the claim, the objection, that the line of reasoning is too speculative. Thank you.